Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. Here, we are going to talk about a highly controversial figure from the early Qing dynasty, Dwa Erguan. His story has often been dramatized in folk legends, unofficial histories, and modern historical dramas, full of romance and tragedy. For instance, some say he was the most beloved son of Nurhaci, the founding father of the Qing dynasty. There are even tales that Nurhaci intended to pass the throne to Dwa Erguan before his death. However, due to political struggles involving Huang and others, not only did Dwa Erguan lose the opportunity to inherit the throne, he also had to watch helplessly as his mother, Abahai, was forced to commit suicide to accompany the deceased. Some folk stories even claim that Dwa Erguan deeply loved Jialuo, who would later become Empress Dowager Xiaozhuang. They say he gave up the throne for her. And there are even rumors that Xiaozhuang, in order to protect her son Fulin's claim to the throne, had no choice but to submit to Dwa Erguan. These tales are certainly intriguing. But what is the historical truth? According to historical records, Joro Dwa Erguan was the 14th son of Emperor Nurhaci. He was born on November 17, 1612, in Hichu Ala, Jianzhou Left Guard, present-day Xinbin County, Liaoning Province. His mother, Abahai, came from the Ula tribe, which corresponds to the modern-day area around Jilin City. Abahai married Nurhaci when she was only 12 years old, while Nurhaci was already 43. A 31-year age difference. Abahai was young, beautiful, and talented, quickly winning Nurhaci's favor. 2 years later, she was granted the title of Grand Consort, enjoying a highly prominent status in the imperial harem. She bore Nurhaci 3 sons. Her eldest, Ajige, was the 12th son overall. Her second, Dwa Erguan, was the 14th. And her youngest, Dwa, was the 15th. These 3 brothers would all go on to leave a significant mark in Qing history, especially Dwa Erguan and Dwa, who played critical roles in the Qing conquest of China and in consolidating the new regime. From various historical accounts, it seems Nurhaci placed special importance on Abahai and her 3 sons. For example, near the Tianming Palace in Shenyang, the residences of Ajige, Dwa Erguan, and Dwa were all very close to one another. At the time, this was a strong signal that Nurhaci had high hopes for these sons. Abahai thus maintained a stable and favored position in the imperial harem. However, good times never last long, and fate soon brought tremendous upheaval to this family. In 1626, Nurhaci's health began to decline. He first went to the Qinghe hot springs to recuperate, but his condition worsened. On August 11, he died on his way back to Shenyang at the age of 68. After Nurhaci's death, a shocking event occurred in the palace. Abahai was ordered to follow him in death. This form of sacrifice, known as xuanzang, was a practice in Manchu society at the time, in which wives or concubines were sometimes required to die alongside a deceased husband. Such practices were not uncommon in early Qing society. However, as a grand consort of high status, Abahai, in theory, should not have been subjected to this. According to historical records, on the day after Nurhaci's death, Abahai, under pressure from several princes, chose to take her own life. She was only 36 years old. Before her death, she made a special request that her 2 young sons, Dwa Erguan and Dwa, be well taken care of. At the time, Dwa Erguan was just 14, and Dwa was 12. The 2 brothers lost both parents overnight, leaving them in an extremely difficult situation. However, the cause of Abahai's death remains controversial to this day. Some believe it was Nurhaci's final wish, fearing that she might interfere in court politics in the future. Others suspect that political intrigue lay behind the incident. After all, Abahai's three sons held significant military power. And their influence might have posed a threat to other royal heirs. Abahai's death plunged Dwa Erguan and his brothers into hardship. But it also ignited their fighting spirit. After Nurhasai passed away, he did not designate a clear successor, which led to an intense struggle for the throne. The most competitive contenders at the time included Huang Taiji, Daisan, Nurhasai's second son, and Abahai's three sons. In the end, Huang Taiji emerged victorious and inherited the throne. But the challenges he faced after ascending were far from minor. As a shrewd politician, Huang Taiji quickly took action to consolidate his power. He took control of the two white banners, and also appointed his son Huj as the commander of the plain blue banner, significantly boosting his influence. On the other hand, Dwa Erguan and his brothers were not faring as well. Their mother had passed away, and their family power was weakened. Especially their eldest brother Ajige, whose impulsive nature led to multiple reckless actions. For instance, he once arranged a marriage for their younger brother Dwa without authorization, which enraged Huang Taiji. And he was stripped of his noble title and position as a banner commander. Despite their youth, Dwa Erguan and Dwa began to show promise. Dwa Erguan in particular stood out, even as a teenager. He had already been appointed by Nurhasai as a Hashua Bail, prince of the third rank, participating in major state affairs and demonstrating remarkable talent. Dwa Erguan's path to power can be described as an inspirational drama. From a boy who lost both parents, he gradually rose to become a central figure in Qing politics. During Huang Taiji's reign, Dwa Erguan performed impressively in both military and political spheres. He led campaigns and defeated Ligdan Khan, even presenting the imperial seal of the Yuan dynasty. An extraordinary achievement. This seal would later become a key symbol supporting Huang Taiji's claim to the imperial title. Politically, Dwa Erguan promoted the establishment of the 8 bureau system. And he held long-term control over the Ministry of Personnel, responsible for official appointments, essentially acting as a modern-day Minister of Organization. He elevated a number of capable Han and Manchu officials, including Fan Wencheng, Bao Chengxian, Shifu, and Gang Lin, laying a solid foundation for the Qing dynasty's governance. In terms of economic policy, he also proposed practical strategies, such as adjusting trade relations with the Ming dynasty, and improving ties with Mongol tribes, which helped stabilize the economy in the rear. Despite Dwa Erguan's outstanding abilities, Huang Taiji remained wary of him. While making use of Dwa Erguan's talents, he also employed various means to suppress him and his brothers. For example, he deliberately sowed discord between Dwa Erguan and Dwa, hoping to divide the brothers. But Dwa Erguan was highly intelligent and stayed low profile, careful not to give Huang Taiji any excuse to act against him. He was essentially surviving in a political minefield, trying to demonstrate his capabilities without arousing suspicion. This cautious approach allowed him to maintain his footing at court, but also limited his further advancement. In 1643, Huang Taiji suddenly passed away at the age of 52. He had not named a successor before his death, triggering yet another intense power struggle over the Qing throne. This time, the main contenders were Huang Taiji's eldest son Huj and Dwa Erguan. Huj was in his 30s. A proven military commander backed by the 2 yellow banners and the plain blue banner. A formidable force. Dwa Erguan, though younger, was both civilly and militarily accomplished, and commanded the 2 white banners. He also had the support of his brother Dwa and some members of the imperial clan, having long headed the Ministry of Personnel. Dwa Erguan had many trusted allies in the court, making him a strong rival. This succession crisis was arguably the most tense political showdown of the early Qing period. Both sides fiercely debated in the Chongzheng Hall. With tensions running high, conflict seemed imminent. Huja's side had strong support from officials of the Yellow Banners, who even declared that if Huang Taiji's son was not chosen as emperor, they would rather die in protest. Dwa Erguan supporters, representing the White Banners, were equally determined. Amid the deadlock, Dwa Erguan demonstrated remarkable political acumen. He proposed a compromise to enthrone Huang Taiji's ninth son, Aizen Joro Fulin, who was only 5 years old at the time, and have himself and Prince Zheng, Zhegelang, serve as co-regents. This proposal was eventually accepted by all parties. On August 26, 1643, Fulin was enthroned, and the era was named Xuanji. Dwa Erguan became Prince Regent. This power struggle clearly shows Dwa Erguan's political maturity. He knew when to retreat strategically, using compromise to balance competing forces. He not only preserved his own position, but also avoided a civil conflict. This strategic concession not only secured his footing in the court, but also paved the way for his eventual control of power. Shortly after the Qing army entered the Central Plains, Dwa Erguan's status rose even further. As Prince Regent, he effectively held control over the government. In the early years of the Xuanji reign, the Qing dynasty faced many challenges, including peasant armies led by Li Zicheng, uprisings by Zhang Xianzhong, and resistance forces from the southern Ming regime. Dwa Erguan led the Qing forces southward, defeating both Li Zicheng and Zhang Xianzhong, and gradually stabilized the situation. At the same time, Dwa Erguan's political opponents began to diminish. Huj was stripped of his title for repeatedly slandering Dwa Erguan, and later died in prison under other charges at the age of only 40. Daishan passed away due to old age, and Zhegelang, uninterested in state affairs, largely handed over power to Dwa Erguan. By the 5th year of the Xuanji reign, 1648, Dwa Erguan had reached the peak of his power. It was around this time that the story of Empress Dowager Xiaozhuang marrying down to Dwa Erguan began to circulate in unofficial histories. According to the tale, Empress Dowager Xiaozhuang, in order to secure her son Fulin's throne, was forced to submit to Dwa Erguan and allegedly became his secret lover. This rumor became quite popular among the public, and was especially romanticized in novels and TV dramas. But did this really happen according to historical records? Let's take a closer look at the evidence. First of all, the notion of Xiaozhuang marrying Dwa Erguan mainly comes from accounts written by former Ming loyalists, such as the poet Zhang Huangyan, who hinted at an ambiguous relationship between Xiaozhuang and Dwa Erguan. But these accounts have many problems. For example, Zhang claimed that Xiaozhuang lived in the Xinang Palace. But in reality, Xiaozhuang didn't move into the Xinang Palace until the 10th year of the Xuanji reign, while Dwa Erguan had already died in the 7th year, 1650, the timelines simply don't match. Moreover, as a staunch anti-Qing figure, Zhang Huangyan's writings are clearly emotionally charged, and were likely intended to criticize the Qing court, making them unreliable as historical sources. Second, some point to one of the charges against Dwa Erguan, that he entered the inner palace, as evidence suggesting an illicit relationship with Xiaozhuang. However, this charge was most likely fabricated by political enemies to frame Dwa Erguan. If such a relationship had truly existed, publicly writing it into official charges would have meant insulting the royal family itself, which would have been extremely risky, making the likelihood quite low. Furthermore, those who accused Dwa Erguan, such as Zhegelang and officials from the two Yellow Banners, were political rivals. Their accusations were often politically motivated, and cannot be fully trusted. Lastly, Dwa Erguan's self-bestowed title of Imperial Father and Prince Regent, and the fact that Xiaozhuang was not buried with Huang Taiji, have also been cited as evidence of this rumored marriage. But in truth, the title, Imperial Father, was a form of respectful address for powerful officials at the time, similar to Imperial Uncle, and did not imply any real familial relationship. For instance, Zhuge was referred to as Imperial Uncle and Prince Regent. So when Dwa Erguan called himself Imperial Father and Prince Regent, it was simply a way to assert higher status, and was not considered inappropriate in the political context of that era. As for why Empress Dowager Xiaozhuang was not buried with Huang Taiji, there are two main reasons. First, Huang Taiji's tomb already housed Empress Xiaoduan. Second, Xiaozhuang expressed in her later years that she wished to be buried near the imperial city, to remain close to her descendants. These decisions had no direct connection to the claim that she'd married down to Dwa Erguan. Qing history expert Mr. Mengson conducted a detailed study on this matter. He concluded that the story of Xiaozhuang marrying Dwa Erguan is purely a rumor, lacking any reliable historical evidence. In contrast, there are indeed historical examples of Empress Dowagers having romantic relationships with powerful officials, such as Empress Dowager Shao of the Liao dynasty and Han Durang. Their relationship is clearly recorded in historical texts. Empress Dowager Shao even openly lived and ate with Han Durang, showing no restraint. According to records from envoys of the Song dynasty, after secretly arranging for the murder of Han Durang's wife, Empress Dowager Shao moved in with him, and they were inseparable, even appearing together on military front lines. By comparison, there is no such evidence regarding the relationship between Dwa Erguan and Xiaozhuang. So why didn't Dwa Erguan proclaim himself emperor when he was at the height of his power? After all, he effectively controlled the court. The two white banners were fiercely loyal to him, and most of his political enemies had been eliminated. The answer likely lies in a combination of his family situation, personal circumstances, and the broader political environment. To begin with, Dwa Erguan's two brothers, Ajige and Dwa, provided little real support. Ajige, though brave in battle, was reckless in temperament, and frequently caused trouble. For instance, during Huang Taiji's reign, he was punished for arranging a marriage without permission, and later demoted to a prince of the second rank for acting independently. In the 6th year of the Xuanji reign, he even publicly claimed that Zhuge was not Nurhasai's biological son, and asserted that he himself should be prince regent, which deeply angered Dwa Erguan. Dwa Erguan had to curtail his brother's power and forbid him from participating in government affairs. With such an unreliable elder brother, Dwa Erguan could hardly count on family support for claiming the throne. As for his younger brother Dwa, though not as reckless as Ajige, he also lacked political maturity. He was a formidable general on the battlefield, but more concerned with personal pleasure in court politics. During Huang Taiji's reign, he caused a scandal by seizing the wife of Han Chinese official Fan Wencheng. After entering Beijing, his focus turned to gathering beautiful women, and he showed little enthusiasm for Dwa Erguan's potential ambitions to become emperor. In the 5th year of the Xuanji reign, some Han officials like Chen Mingxia urged Dwa Erguan to take the throne. Dwa initially gave lukewarm support, but later withdrew even that. In the 6th year of Xuanji, Dwa died of smallpox at the age of 36. A devastating blow to Dwa Erguan. Besides the lack of familial support, Dwa Erguan also suffered from poor health. Having lived most of his life outside the Great Wall, he struggled to adapt to Beijing's dry and hot climate, often suffering from heatstroke. According to historical records, even while resting in an ice chamber, Dwa Erguan found the heat unbearable. In the 7th year of Xuanji, 1650, he decided to leave the capital to hunt and escape the summer heat. Unfortunately, during the hunt, he fell from his horse and died, at the age of just 39. Dwa Erguan's sudden death instantly dashed all hopes or speculation of him becoming emperor. But his death did not mark the end of his story. Instead, it triggered an even greater political storm. Just 1 month after his death, his elder brother Ajige attempted a coup, which was swiftly crushed. His children were enslaved, and Ajige himself died in prison. 3 months later, Prince Zheng took the lead in denouncing Dwa Erguan, listing 7 major crimes against him, including usurping imperial authority and unauthorized use of the emperor's seal. Emperor Xuanji seized the opportunity to strip Dwa Erguan of all titles, and even had his tomb destroyed. Tens of thousands of people were implicated as a result. According to various historians, Dwa Erguan's life was full of contradictions and regrets. He was both a gifted military leader and a capable politician, and he made immense contributions to the Qing conquest and the stabilization of the new regime. But Dwa Erguan also harbored imperial ambition, repeatedly inching toward the throne, only to be thwarted by various factors. Some say he was constrained by power struggles among Manchu nobles. Others argue that the political undercurrents laid by Huang Taiji limited him. In any case, in this grand chessboard of power, Dwa Erguan never made it to the top. Many years later, Emperor Qianlong rehabilitated Dwa Erguan's reputation and restored his honor. But by then, the glory that once belonged to Dwa Erguan had long faded with time. His story is not just a personal rise and fall saga, but also a vivid reflection of the fierce power struggles in the early Qing dynasty. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone, and see you in the next time.